Good evening and welcome to this evening's extraordinary meeting of Rother District Council. My name is Councillor Brian Drayson, Chair of the Council. This meeting is being held remotely and is being live streamed via YouTube. The recording of this meeting will be available afterwards on our website. All members and officers are reminded to put their mobile phones on silent if they have one near them, and to both switch off their cameras and mute their microphones when not speaking, as this will reduce any distractions, feedback and background noise. When called upon to speak, members and officers should turn on their cameras and unmute their microphones. Please be aware that there can be a time delay of around 5 seconds before the person who wishes to speak appears on screen. The following members and officers are asked to leave their cameras on throughout the meeting. Councillor Doug Oliver, Leader of the Council, Councillor Carl Maynard, Leader of the Conservative Group, Councillor Kevin Dixon, Leader of the Lib Dem Green Group, Councillor Cathy Harmer, Vice Chair, and Mr Malcolm Johnson, Chief Executive Designate, plus myself as Chair. I hope that this will give the public watching via YouTube a better experience. I will now ask the Democratic Services Manager to conduct a roll call to check that all members who are expected are present. When your name is called, please turn on your microphone and confirm you are connected. Thank you, Lisa.
John Barnes. John Barnes.
Present.
Mary Barnes. Mary Barnes.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Bailey, is she still apologies for this meeting as well?
Yes, Lisa.
Yeah, sorry. Bird.
Present.
Brewerton.
Present.
Brown.
Present.
Byrne.
Present.
Carroll. Carroll. Clark.
Present.
Coleman.
Present.
Cook.
Present.
Dixon.
Present.
Drayson.
Present.
Earl Williams.
Present.
Errington.
Present.
Field.
Present.
Ganley.
Present.
Gray.
Present.
Harmer.
Present.
Hart. Giawan.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Mrs Kirby Green. Mrs Kirby Green. Langlands.
Present.
Madeley.
Present.
Maynard.
Present.
Mere.
Present.
Mooney.
Present.
Norton. Norton. Oliver.
Present.
Osborne.
Present.
Proshak. Stevens.
Present.
Chair.
Thomas.
Present.
Tenpey.
Present.
Vinehall.
Present.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa. Officers joining us this evening are Mr Malcolm Johnson, Chief Executive Designate. I believe Mr Robin Bernard, Assistant Director of Resources, is still with us, and Mrs Lisa Cooper, Democratic Services Manager and Monitoring Officer. Also joining us this evening is former Executive Director, Dr. Tony Leonard, and I extend a welcome to him this evening. Also participating to a greater or lesser degree, depending on how well the technology holds up, we have Claire Fletcher and James Waite, looking after the software for us. Any member wishing to speak should indicate by please typing your surname only in the chat facility. Officers wishing to respond to members' questions, please type interject. The chat facility is persistent in that it cannot be deleted, and any inappropriate use would be deemed as a potential code of conduct matter. It is a requirement that all members would have read the paperwork published on the website. Members are reminded not to press leave meeting. If you need to leave the room, just remember to turn off your cameras and your microphones. Thank you. So, agenda item number 1. Apologies, please.
Chairman, I've received apologies from Councillor Curtis and Councillor Courtell.
Thank you, Lisa. I see Councillor Carroll is now with us.
Chairman, can also say apologies from Councillor Bayliss this evening.
Thank you.
Yes, Chairman, I understand Councillor Kirby Green is having trouble with her internet connection, but she will be with us shortly.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I wondered if she might have still been in the Cabinet meeting, but I'll look out for her trying to join. Thank you.
Chairman, John and Mary Barnes had a complete blackout on their internet, so we're back in.
We saw you come back. Thank you. Right. Disclosures of interest, item 2. Any disclosure of interest in relation to this? Sorry, to describe any disclosure by members of personal and disclosable pecuniary interests in matters on the agenda. The nature of any interest and whether the member regards the personal interest as prejudicial under the terms of the Code of Conduct. Members are reminded to read of the need to repeat their declaration immediately prior to the commencement of the item in question. Mr. Johnson, do you want to say something now? Yes.
Yes, Chairman. As the subject of the report, I will leave on item 3 when the discussion on the report commences.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And I see Councillor Kirby Green is now with us. Thank you. Before I move to item 3, I think now is an appropriate time for those members who wished to pay tribute to Dr. Tony Leonard. I have an order. I'm mixing and matching with. Okay, I'll go with what's on the chat. So actually, Councillor Barnes, please. John Barnes.
Chairman, I'll reserve my remarks for the moment. I think my wife wants to speak.
Is that all right, Chairman, if I come in now?
Yes, yes.
I just want to make this statement about Tony. Tony and Malcolm were the perfect partnership, each able to dispense common sense, humour and advice in equal measure. We benefited from their combined wisdom, born of many years of experience of working for Rother. In the top job, they worked on a 6-month turnabout, each feeding into the other. It all worked perfectly. For whatever reason, Tony has decided to leave us, and we'll be the poorer. His love of Bexhill, shown so clearly in his thesis and his work on the council's regeneration programmes, and his dogged persistence in getting the waste contract together with other local authorities, show that here was a man of huge ability. Yet this was delivered with a self-effacing charm. During my year as council chairman, I was grateful for his reliably instant recourse to the council's constitution, straight from his excellent memory. Personally, I shall miss him. It's a sad time for us all. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you to Councillor Mrs. Mary Barnes. Councillor Ganley.
Thank you, Chairman. I also cannot speak highly enough about Dr. Tony Leonard, a highly competent professional who has served the people of Rother diligently over the last 28 years, and I pay tribute to him. It was indeed Dr. Leonard who instigated the creation of the Joint Waste Committee, which has saved millions of pounds for the taxpayers of Rother. In fact, I believe that the Joint Waste Committee would not have happened had it not been for his efforts. His departure is a huge loss for the people of Rother. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ganley. Councillor Prochak.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I was on the appointment panel of Dr. Leonard all those years ago, 1993, my goodness. And it was a very brave appointment at the time, we thought so. And we haven't regretted that, in the fact that Tony came from the private sector. And because of that, I think Tony's always shown in his work the entrepreneurship that can be gained through being in the private sector. His project started almost straight away, and there was Agenda 21, if people can remember those, and the Environment Days. There was recycling, all the recycling. Rye swimming pool would not have been there without Tony Leonard. I'm not sure about the waste contract. I think Tony himself freely admits it's one of the worst contractors he's ever worked with, and certainly we had to increase the number of people in customer services to deal with all the complaints, and we've actually lost 2 of the partners on the way. So it's really good now that we've got the new contract. So a huge number of projects, and I think probably for me, and I don't know for Tony, I'd like to hear from him, the biggest legacy, a huge legacy, is the restoration of the Delaware. It was at a time he started this, at a time when public opinion was very much against the Delaware. In fact, one councillor once said he'd like it to be blown up. So there was public and also councillor antipathy to the Delaware. I don't know if any of you ever were there. I'm sure Bexillians can remember it. But the Delaware, and one councillor said it had been bog standard municipalised. It was in a very sorry state.
Hey, I'll have it downstairs. Okay.
Oh, sorry. The light, you know, that beautiful light down the staircase, that beautiful light, it was painted over. That was one of the first things that were done to restore that light. It was painted over, had flock wallpaper upstairs, and the then leader of the council actually used it as his private domain. Concrete bars, I can remember concrete bars with glass bottles set in them. And so if anybody of you have had anything to do with going for lottery bids, it takes blood, sweat and tears. The first lottery bid was turned down, which was a great, huge disappointment. But Tony Leonard picked it up again, and again, not with total support from the council, brought it to the second lottery bid to get the whole restoration. Not as much as we wanted, but the restoration. And the Delaware has now gone on. It's put Rother on the map, Bexhill on the map. It is of international standing. And I would like to thank Tony Leonard. And in the meantime, in all this, he managed to do a doctorate. Don't know how he managed to do that. And managed to leave this huge legacy. And I really do thank him for that.
Thank you, Councillor Prochak. Councillor Maynard.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Thanks for the opportunity to speak about Tony. The political backdrop to this we've already covered off in previous meetings. I mean, Conservatives were united in not wanting to lose either executive director, and we were opposed to the reorganisation undertaken by the Alliance, and we remain steadfast in that position. But Tony Leonard personally was a friend to me throughout my tenure as a councillor, which started back in 1999. Tony, of course, joined the council back in 1993, as Councillor Prochak's alluded to. What Councillor Prochak has neglected to mention, of course, is perhaps the most controversial project in Bexhill, and in fact a project that only the Conservatives were in favour of at the time, and that was seeing through the seafront regeneration. The seafront regeneration project, that was a £5.4 million project, but it also, of course, attracted as one of only 2 places in the country, the CADE funding, which meant that in real terms that the shelters cost us nothing, and we got £1 million worth of external funding. All due in most part to the efforts, the officer efforts of Tony Leonard, but also seeing through that project, having the foresight to actually see that the proper regeneration of Bexhill seafront was complementary, in fact, to what Councillor Prochax alluded to in terms of the restoration and indeed the increased footfall that we've seen as a result within the Delaware Pavilion. That's just one of the projects that Tony Leonard was behind, and certainly I think the flagship project of that particular term of office that we enjoyed. But of course, as already been mentioned, Joint Waste Committee, which has saved the ratepayers of East Sussex millions of pounds. The other major projects, as already been mentioned, the Rice swimming pool, but of course Tony's team were also very much working with East Sussex and Sea Change in terms of regeneration in North East Bexhill, and in terms, of course, of the County Council project of the Link Road. These things all interlink, and they require high quality officers. What worries me is in losing Tony Leonard, we've lost one of the most experienced officers, and more than that, somebody who's prepared to see a controversial project, perhaps, seen through from inception to its delivery. And that's something that you can't buy in cheaply. And I do believe very strongly that it was a false economy to actually reorganise the structure of this authority, and that Tony Leonard will be sorely missed. I mean, another project, of course, that was in the pipeline, the Alliance of Cand, was, of course, the Bexhill Leisure Centre project, another project that I know that Tony Leonard was very passionate about. We shall miss his expertise. I shall personally miss his friendship. And certainly I'm sure that I speak for all councillors, regardless of political colour, in wishing him well for the future. And who knows, we could see him working once again for Rother, perhaps in a consultancy capacity. But Tony had unrivalled experience, unrivalled knowledge. And frankly, Rother, and indeed, the whole of East Sussex are actually worse off for the fact that he's no longer with us. And I pay personal tribute to him as well as a professional one. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Maynard. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to say basically, as over the sort of years I've been involved with the council since '99, as a cabinet member and most mainly as a sort of scrutiny chairman, to sort of have Tony sitting either to the left or right of me has been quite comforting, actually, because he always got the answer you need, and if something comes through that's a bit sort of challenging, you can sort of just say, Tony, over to you, and the answer always comes forward, sort of 9 times out of 10, and the ones, he doesn't get caught out very often, so no, it's been good and very useful, and he has been, as previous members have spoken, he's been a good servant to Rother District Council and the area in, the wider area as well. So, I'll personally miss him and wish him well. And hopefully, we won't have a massive void in our knowledge, because that's what concerns me the most, is when we lose good officers, you lose a lot of knowledge built up over many years. And contacts as well. So I wish Tony well in the future, and thank you for the last 27 years.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. I first met Tony Leonard when I was elected onto the council in 1999. Tony was a pillar of strength and full of ideas. If I needed help or advice, he was one of the first I would turn to. When I became chairman of Rother Council in 2018, Tony gave me great support and encouragement, right down to the pinning of the chairman's chain of office. I'm sure all past chairmen will know what I mean. In all, I found Tony a first-class officer, always motivated to do his best for Rother. He will be very much missed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Kirby-Green. Councillor.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. A lot of people have sort of said what I was going to say. I just would like to put on record my thanks to Dr. Leonard, who has been very, very supportive to me since I was elected as a councillor. I worked closely with him when I held the portfolio for Safer Communities, and I really do feel he was key to the council and the police having such a close working relationship. Certainly, I know operationally day to day, he was so involved, and I know the police thought very highly of him. He was a consummate professional, and he was passionate about the area in which we live, which I think is fantastic. He absolutely, truly believed he wanted Rother to be the best place for people to work and live. And that's why he sort of pioneered quite a few of the projects we've done over the years. So yeah, he will be missed, and I'd just like to wish him and Alison all the best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Green. Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Speaking as one of the newer members, despite the short amount of time that I've had sort of around Tony, he's absolutely shown himself to be an incredible officer, someone with determination, with the ability to rise above politics and the sort of toing and froing of council and pursue ambitious projects which really do have the residents at heart. It's sad to see Tony go. I wanted to say a big thank you to Tony, especially for staying on during the opening stages of the pandemic. Obviously, that was a big surprise to us all, and Tony, along with Malcolm, were able to steer this ship through that rough sea. And I wish Tony all the best for the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you to Councillor Coleman. Councillor Field.
Yes, thank you. I also wish Dr. Leonard well for the future, and personally I was fascinated by the backstory he sent us all. I wish I'd known it all sooner. It was really interesting, I thought, and clearly he is now free to devote a lot more time to surfing, which I know, in spite of his love of Bexhill and Rother, was his real passion. That and house renovation, I now find out. So I hope he does well in the future, and I think Councillor Mrs. Barnes was right. You, Malcolm and Tony made a very good pair, but now we are here with just one executive director, and the report we have before us is asking us to confirm your appointment for a year. And I personally think it will be an exciting and fascinating year ahead of us. So having said that, I would like to move the report.
I'm coming to report very shortly, Councillor Field. I've got Councillor Harmer, I've got Councillor Oliver who wishes to pay tribute, then actually Mr. Johnston and myself. So Councillor Harmer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to echo Councillor Coleman's sentiments. Having been a new councillor, I'd like to thank Dr. Leonard for his support and advice, and thank him sincerely for his length of service, and it was indeed very interesting to read his history, and I would like to wish him the very, very best for his next chapter and the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harmer. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chairman. There's not a lot I can add to the accolades that have been bestowed on Tony this evening. I found him, from a professional point of view, if you asked him a question, he had this sort of archive memory capacity that immediately he would be able to relate to something. And if you drop him a line on something, you had a reply with a link as to, the previous history on a specific matter. A professional, totally committed, and it's been a pleasure to work with him this last 18 months as leader, or 15 months, 16 months, whatever it might be, and before that. So I did have the opportunity of speaking with Tony in person last week, and I really do wish him well. It's an exciting time for him ahead, and I really do wish him well on every aspect, and I know he's got some very exciting plans. And the excitement, I think there will be some exciting future here in Rother, of which he has laid the platform for, and good luck to you, Tony. All the very best.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Mr. Johnston.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would echo many of the comments made by members, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to add my personal thanks and best wishes to Tony. He and I worked closely together actually for some 12 and a half years now, and I've greatly valued his help and support over that time. His contribution to this district is immense, and many members have referred to that over the last few minutes. But he will be very much missed by me and his colleagues in the council. So, keeping it short and sweet, thank you, Tony. All the very, very best for the future, and my own personal thanks for the privilege of working with you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Before I ask Dr. Leonard if he'd like to reply to any, there's no point in being chairman if you can't have the last word. So I just wanted to sum up. We've heard today tributes from across the council. I'm just going to touch on something that Councillor Mary Barnes and Councillor Johnson said, which was chair. And you've been a great help to chairmen, chairpeople, chairpersons of this council through your stay. And on behalf of all the chairmen, past and present, thank you ever so much, Tony. Would you like to address the meeting?
Chairman, thank you very much. If I may, I'll be very brief. I did send an email out to all councillors and all staff. They were different emails, naturally, and I received a number of very kind messages back, and I do thank you all for those who sent those through. They were very, very much appreciated. I'd just like to say I'd like to thank the council as far back as '93 through to now, in giving me the opportunity to work in this role. I think many of you have used the word, I take it with passion, I take it with pride, and I take it with commitment. And that commitment can sometimes be very challenging of the officers and very challenging of the members, but it was always done with the best intent of getting the best for the residents of Rother. And I'd like to think I can look back and say I've had a positive impact on the district. There's still more to be done, a lot more to be done. But I do take the view it's moving in the right direction, and that I think is a positive. I always follow the advice of Bob Kerslake, Sir Bob Kerslake, who was at Sheffield, leader of the Sheffield City Council, who said that the role of the public sector is to create the conditions for which ambitious organisations and individuals will choose to locate to the area and remain in the area. And I think over the last decade or so, we've seen that happen. And even as council, I've said, even most recently, that's happening as well. And I think that's critical. And I think what has helped on that is making sure that councils do not lose sight of the value of the public realm and the way that's presented, because that can send out some very clear messages. And public realm for many councils is a high expense and often is disregarded or is overlooked. So please, or just implore, is make sure you keep focused on that as well. It's been a huge privilege working with many staff over the years, and I do mean many staff, and the late David Powell, who was at the time when who appointed me into the council, through to the councillors over the many years, past and present, in taking the organisation forward, and unfortunately some those that have passed away, like Brian Kempfield and others who have sadly passed away during the period of COVID. I've seen staff and members really give a lot of energy and effort to that. There are exceptional staff at Rother, and I genuinely do mean that. They're loyal, they're committed, and they're hardworking. So as you move forward, and I know there'll be challenging times as you move forward, and as you do change organisation, that's it. Just remember to treat them with respect and treat them with courtesy, and you'll bring them along with you in making those changes happen. I myself always followed that advice. It was given to me many years ago by an ex-chief executive from the private sector, and that has paid dividends. I move on now to a new role. I've set up my own consultancy, and I've been astounded how quickly the work has come in. I've already today just secured 3 months of work, and on the way back I got another phone call for another consultant who wanted me to act as associate for them on another piece of work, and that's quite varied, that work as well. And so I think if you put the effort into a job, you pay the rewards at the back end of it. But treating the staff and treating your contractors, treating your residents with that respect and courtesy always pays dividends. Finally, it's been a great pleasure to work at Rother, and I do mean that. Over the past 27 years, I've worked with some excellent members, some challenging members, and likewise with staff as well. I personally wish the council all the very success as it moves forward. I personally wish Malcolm Johnson all the great success in taking that forward with the staff and with the members. It's been a pleasure working with him and the staff, and I do genuinely mean that. I hope to as well. Thank you for your kind words this evening. As many of you said, I don't hang around. I've already had my house sold. I've already bought another one, and I move in December. And I've got 6 months of work already lined up and ahead of me. So I've thoroughly enjoyed my time at Rother. It's been done with passion, with enjoyment, and with challenge. And I do hope that I've left the place in a better place to live in throughout Rother than when I first joined 27 years ago. So thank you very much all indeed for that opportunity, and I wish you every success in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Leonard. Councillor Barnes, I had this perfectly worked out, all coming to an end with Dr. Leonard, but I see you'd like to speak now before I move to motion agenda item 3. Please be brief.
Yes, Catherine Field has moved the motion. I want to move an amendment, but before I do so, I would like to say a couple of words about Tony Leonard. I'm a relatively new boy on the council. He and I, though, have two things in common. One, I'm an academic, and so is he. And in addition to all the work he did for the council and for Rother, he wrote an excellent thesis, which is very good reading and very instructive. And secondly, he and I are both surfers, although unlike me, he's not past it. The reason I want to move an amendment is I think we ought to place our thanks on record to Tony. And
One
therefore,
moment, please,
I'm proposing
just one moment, please. One moment.
Amendment.
Did you start that by saying you wanted to second this, or you want to do the amendment?
I want to propose an amendment to the motion that Councillor Field.
So
I'm happy to second him proposing the amendment.
Thank you. I think I need the motion seconded first, do I? Before you can propose an amendment?
Yes, Chairman, you need the motion moved and seconded before you can move an amendment to it.
Okay.
Councillor Prochak, I can second the motion.
Thank you. So that's Councillor Field proposed it. Councillor Prochak seconded it. Sorry, Councillor Barnes. Carry on.
That's right. I was delighted to second in amending, but I wasn't sure I could second. I was moving an amendment. What I wanted to do was to insert the following words between the word resolved and the name of Malcolm Johnston. And the words I want to insert are that the council place on record its warm thanks to Dr. Tony Leonard for his immense services to Rother, semicolon, and then and that Malcolm Johnston. It seems to me it's appropriate, given Tony's enormous services, that we do actually put that very formally on record. I have a personal warmth towards him. As a very new member, I was asked to chair the Housing Task Force, and Tony was a tower of strength in finding the witnesses, in helping our discussions, in driving forward what I believe is going to be the parent body for one of our most important initiatives in the coming years. So it gives me great pleasure indeed to move that amendment, and I hope I shall find a seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Just before I look to see if there's a seconder, I'll come to Mr. Johnson who wants to interject. But Lisa, had you received, obviously that's what Councillor Barnes put in an email to us. It hasn't appeared on me. Have you got the wording at all?
I haven't received the email, no, Chairman.
You might have to say that again in a moment, Councillor Barnes, very slowly. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. As members are moving on to discuss the motion, I think it's appropriate if I leave at this point, and I will return after the vote has been taken, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Councillor Barnes, could I ask you to read that out again, please, at a dictation speed? Thank you.
I'm sorry the emails are not getting through. It's to insert the following words between resolved and the name of Malcolm Johnson. The words are that the council place on record its warm thanks to Dr. Tony Leonard for his immense services to Rother, and semicolon, and that Malcolm Johnston, and then the rest of the words stand. I move.
And I would like to second it, Councillor Mooney.
Councillor Mooney, second the amendment.
Chair, I'd already seconded in the chat, Councillor.
Yes, I see that now. Unfortunately, the black chats block each other out, but Councillor Coleman seconded. Thank you. Councillor Timpey. Somebody's speaking, but I can't hear much.
No, it's okay, Chair. I was going to second, but that's already been done. Thank you.
So we've got thirds and fourths for this one. Stuff. Okay. Did you manage to get that down, Lisa?
Yes, that's fine, Chairman.
Thank you. So am I right in thinking the amendment goes to the vote first?
Technically it does, Chairman, but I would suggest that if there's no members who are in disagreement with that, we can just take it as en bloc, as it's not really changing the actual main resolution.
Thank you. Can I ask any members who wish to object to adding that amendment to type something appropriate in the chat, please? Well, that gave somebody with even the longest name time. So I think we'll accept that. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Barnes. So we're now going to put to motion to the vote as amended. Do you want me to read it again, or you read it again, Lisa?
Chairman, I wasn't going to read it again. I think members are probably aware of the thanks that have been expressed.
Thank you for not saying they're probably sick of me talking. Thank you. Right, okay, thank you. Over to you then, please, Lisa, for the vote.
Thank you. Members, I'm going to call you out alphabetically. Please just respond with for, against or abstain. John Barnes.
For.
Mary Barnes.
For.
Bird.
For.
Brewerton.
For.
Brown.
For.
Byrne.
For.
Carroll.
For.
Clark.
For.
Coleman.
For.
Mrs. Cook.
For.
Dixon.
For.
Drayson.
For.
Mrs. Earl Williams.
For.
Errington.
For.
Field.
For.
Ganley.
For.
Gray.
For.
Harmer.
For.
Giawan.
For.
Johnson.
For.
Mrs. Kirby Green.
For.
Langlands.
For.
Madeley.
For.
Maynard.
For.
Mere.
For.
Mooney.
For.
Norton. Oliver.
For.
Osborne.
For.
Proshak. Stevens.
For.
Thomas.
For.
Tenpey.
For.
Vinehall.
For.
That's carried unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa. Could you invite Mr. Johnson back in, please?
will do.
Welcome back in, Mr. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'll put you out of your misery. It was unanimous.
Thank you, Chairman. And can I just say, if I may, there, Chairman, that thank you, members, for appointing me to this role at the council. It's a role I'm honoured to take on, and you have my assurance that I will lead this council in delivering the aims and objectives of this council. I think I'm very privileged to do this role, and I'm very proud to be leading such a fantastic bunch of staff that many people have referred to tonight. So thank you, Chairman, and thank you, members, for that.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. It just remains for me to close the meeting with one final, because he's still here. Big thank you and all the best for the future, Dr. Tony Leonard. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much indeed, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Tony.